Welcome back to Nick Lenz's Comic Corner, Classic, Non-Classics. This is episode number 1407, not 7, 8, and Doubleshot number 1502. I am basically going to discuss two Green Lantern, but first, I'm going to talk about two issue zeros. You probably, if you're new to comics, if you just got the comic recently, you're probably thinking, what's up with an issue zero? Wouldn't they start with this one first? Not necessarily. This was released during Zero Month in, I believe it was September of 2012. That's when these particular issues were released. Pretty much any ongoing story arc that was going in any series had to take a break for 1 month. This lasted from 2012 to about 2015. They did this. 2016, actually 2014, 2015, they never did this at all. 16 is when they officially put a stop to this. Where no more basically like, so there comes around, we had to take a month off for this. Like, first it was Zero Month, and then it was Villains Month, and then it was Future's End. Ugh. Sorry about this. Okay, first up I'm talking about is Green Lantern New Guardians. I like some issue zeros, which are meant to be served as the backstory. Sorry about that. This one does not serve as a backstory, let's say, origin of Kyle Rayner. We actually got that in the first issue, which I forgot to mention this in my review for it, that in the first issue they actually kept in canon when Kyle Rayner's first girlfriend, Alex DeWant, was basically murdered and stuffed in a refrigerator. Yes, they kept that canon. Why? Because it's part of Kyle Rayner's character. Yes, they slightly altered exactly how he got his ring, but they kept that portion of his history canon. I know if a lot of his art history was canon, but though thanks to the Omniverse, thanks to, of course, to DC, well, Dark Knight Metal number 7, everything is canon. At this point in time, because of the whole thing being a reboot, like, a lot of people were questioning what is canon, what is canon. From what I can tell for this series, portions of Kyle Rayner's history are canon. But as far as I can tell, I'd say a couple points basically of how he got the ring and his girlfriend's death. That's the only thing, as far as I can tell, kept canon. Unknown if they kept the fact that Major Force was responsible for murdering her and then stuffing her in a refrigerator. And then, of course, at the end of the Green Lantern run, before it got relaunched under Jeff Johns, here's something that a lot of people do not talk about. Major Force did it again. Except this time, it was Kyle's mother. Instead of stuffing her body in the refrigerator like he did before, he stuffed her body in the frickin' oven. This is Ron Martz for you. I don't know that he thinks this is funny. I have no idea why. I mean, this is something that's not talked about. People talk about the woman refrigerator thing, but what about the woman in the oven? That's even more gross. Alright. This one, simply put, basically, is dealing with what happened in the pages of Green Lantern, which still at this point is written by Jeff Johns. When I mentioned possibly Hal might be dead, thanks to the events of the second story arc of the relaunch run. So, Kyle, without the New Guardians, goes to be able with Carol Ferris. And they kind of in a way start a new trend for the series, where these two are partners the entire series. Yes. He goes to be with Carol, tells her basically that possibly Hal might be dead, but Carol's like, that can't be possible because my love for him basically is still powering myself up. And they go out looking for him. And unlike in the case of Green Lantern Zero, which that basically introduced Simon Boz and later groundwork for Rise of the Army, that basically is the first thing we'll talk about. This book doesn't really lead to that at all. No, not really. It's mostly just Kyle informing Carol about what happened with Hal. And them dealing with like zombies and basically becoming a partners. And A partnership, like I just said, lasts the whole run. Of course, this issue is written by Tony Bedard. Artwork is done by Andrew Kidder, which the guy himself is not a bad artist per se. We also have appearance by, get this, a character who in pre-Flashpoint, actually pre-Crisis, referred to as Pie Face, because the man is an Eskimo. His name is Tom, and he was one of Hal's closest friends. And basically, well, I think Tony Bedard just made the character canon in this universe. Just cuz. Yep. Though, in the case of this book, this mostly lays the groundwork for something that might happen later on in the series. But yeah, that's the issue 0 for you for Green Lantern Guardians. Next up is Red Lanterns issue 0. Red Lanterns at this point in time was written by Peter Mulligan. The reason why I'm doing these issue 0s is because I don't have to do the trades, the third trade that collect both these two. Now the artwork in this one is by Adrian Safif. This mostly is telling the backstory of Atrocitus. From what I can tell, they kept the whole thing of the Manhunters destroying his world. They kept that canon per se. Yes, they did. That's mostly what this is, basically informing, yes. Oh, sorry about that. I can't blow my nose. So, yes, keeping that portion basically in the way this issue just informs, yes, that Atrocitus' backstory is still intact. Nothing really altered that. Except that he just called Manhunter ugly. Aside from that, it's simply the same backstory. Excuse me. And then you have him torturing a Guardian. I think it's Crota. And then we have some... This is very much a gory issue. It's simply put basically how Atrocitus became what he is. That's simply put what this book is. And him starting the formation of all things, the Red Lantern Corps. Yep. Alright, moving on to Rise of... Oh, by the way, what did I give the ranking of those two issues? In the case of New Guardians, I give that a 9 out, I think, because I think that's an excellent story. Wow, Red Lantern 0. Oh my god, this is a very gory issue. I'm making this one a 7. It's got good artwork, but man, this issue is gory. Alright, now we're going to start on Green Lantern Rise of the Third Army. Now, like in the case of the follow-up story that came after this, Wrath of the First Lantern, I have reviewed part of this story already. Well, mostly put, I read the issues for Green Lantern and Green Lantern Corps. Now I'm about to get out of the way Red Lanterns and New Guardians. Now, who writes all 4 books? Tony Bedard does New Guardians. Peter J. Tomasi does Green Lantern Corps Volume 3. Peter Mulligan does Red Lanterns. And Jeff Johns does Green Lantern. Now, the artwork in this book is done by, well, a whole collection of artists. You have Doug Mahnke, Fernando Pescara, Aaron Coder, and Miguel Sabavia. Mostly put for this one, it's not connected as much as, let's say, Wrath of the First Lantern. It's simply 4 series that basically had these various characters deal with the Third Army. The Third Army is green creatures created by the Guardians of the Universe to replace the Green Lantern Corps, because they felt as though they needed a replacement for them. So, in the pages of Green Lantern, we have Simon Baz coming to terms basically when he first got the ring in issue 0, fight Justice League. Of course, I think he stole the ring, and apparently the way Jeff Johns wrote it is that apparently just like don't listen to him. They don't really get the fact that he's basically been framed as being a terrorist. He was framed, and they couldn't give time basically to give a chance to clear his name. He also heals his brother-in-law in the story, and of course he also has deal goes on the pages of Green Lantern Corps. Now, Green Lantern Corps, shockingly enough, does not feature John Stewart. Yes, for some reason he does not take apart this crossover. Nope, it just basically of the human Green Lanterns, it's mostly just Hal. Yeah, just Hal Jordan, Guy Gardner, Kyle Rayner, Simon Boz, of course, Kara Ferris herself takes part in the story, and Sinestro. Yes. And Lar Fleece plays a small role too. Yep. In the case of Green Lantern Corps, Guy Gardner is basically getting fed up with the bullcrap of the Guardians. So he decides to resign from the Green Lantern Corps, which they accept. And then they send him back to Earth with just whatever he was wearing at that point. And he tries to start a fight, gets arrested by his own sister, who's a cop. Yes, his sister's a cop. And then while he was in custody, the Third Army attacks the police precinct. Because that's what they do. They're not law enforcement, just basically... You could kind of think of the Third Army as a group of... It's basically a random evil monster army that you just have to have all these people basically involved. It's a good story. I like the fact it's mostly self-contained in some points. In the case of Green Lantern Corps, those two feel a lot more connected than New Guardians and Red Lanterns. Red Lanterns is mostly just doing its own thing, dealing with the Third Army, which is shocked to see these things. And the fact you have Atrocitus come face to face with a man who ordered the Manhunters to destroy his homeworld. New Guardians is basically also with the Third Army itself too. This book is just really good. And though the book itself lays the groundwork for Wrath of the First Lantern. Now, Third Army itself mostly just contains... Now, it doesn't contain any issue zeros. I kind of thought it would have, but nope, it doesn't. It contains Green Lantern Volume 5, issues 13 and 16. Green Lantern Guardian, 13 and 16. Green Lantern Corps Volume 3, 13 and 16. Red Lantern, 13 and 16. Green Lantern in number 1, and Green Lantern Corps in number 1. Now, this story that started off in Green Lantern in number 1, that's where it started, and then concluded in the Green Lantern Corps annual. I gotta say, this was actually pretty good. I thoroughly enjoy this, and I'm gonna give this roughly I'm gonna give it 9 out of 10. Really good. Yep. Now, the next one, when I find it here, is a story arc that is nothing more than the title itself is a lie. This is Wrath of the First Lantern. The writers don't change, you're the artist. Now, what does this book contain? Issues 17 and 20 of Green Lantern Volume 5, Green Lantern Corps Volume 3, Red Lanterns, and New Guardians. Yeah, this one feels a lot more connected, and John Stewart does play a role in this one, but not Third Army. Mostly put this one, the First Lantern, Vahum. Yes, he's in the story, and I will get to in a minute basically what happens to him after this. This is simply put in a way, you can kind of think of this story as Jeff Johns' grand finale to his series finale to the Green Lantern franchise. Basically, him just basically closing the book on his long time era in the book. He had been on the book since 2005, and this ended in 2013. Yes, 2013. And here's a fun fact for you. The final issue of his run for Green Lantern, issue 20, was basically $8. Yes, it was a double-sized finale. And here's something I thought was really strange, though. They released the book after what happened in the pages of Green Lantern Corps. Because I remember when the thing came out, like, this is basically about 8 years ago. One YouTuber I saw decided to throw the book on his floor because he didn't like the fact that this particular issue of Green Lantern Corps spoiled the ending of Green Lantern 20. Yes, that's what it was. Though, in the case of Green Lantern 20, it's simply Jeff Johns' love letter to himself, basically referencing stuff like Blackest Night, the Sinestro Corps War, and I think that's it. Nothing about Wrath of the First Lantern, surprisingly. And you're probably thinking, does Black Hand play a role in both stories? Rise of the Third Army, he actually does not play a role. No, he doesn't. This book, he kind of does. In that book, he plays a slightly bigger role. Oh, and who takes up for whom? Why, it's nothing more than the Grim Reaper himself. Necron. Yes. He comes back, making his first appearance as Blackest Night, and he pretty much kills Fahum, and he goes back to being part of the dead. Also, they kind of proclaim Haldor to be potentially the greatest Black Lance of all time, which I thought was kind of weird. Now, does this book set up anything? Yes, it does. Like, pretty much in a way, this kind of in a way wraps up Tony Bedard and P.M. Mulligan's runs. Pretty much all the writers who wrote this crossover all left Zeus's crossover wrapped up. Of course, Green Lantern was taken Ron Venditti, who basically continued writing the character, writing the book until like 2018. Even after the book was relaunched, he still was writing the book. Tommaso would leave the book, and the book would be taken over by Ron Venditti and Ben Jensen. Throughout the brief period of time, Ben Jensen would be the sole writer of the book. New Guardians was taken over by Justin Jordan, and he would pretty much basically write the second half of the series. And in the case of Red Lanterns, it had 2 writers come after this book wrapped up. First was Charles Shaw. I'm looking forward to basically talking about his one. His one was amazing. A lot of people have said, several people have said that the Charles Shaw one was better than Peter Mulligan's run. And though in the case of what happens to certain characters, even after this crossover wrapped up, well, in the case of the villain of the crossover, the First Lantern, he shockingly would actually come back. Like how long did he come back? 5 years later. Actually, yeah, it was 4 years later. He came back in the pages of Green Lantern. Sam Humphries brought him back. And kind of explain his backstory a little bit better. Yes, Hal Jordan himself will continue to be part of this book until its relaunch as Hal Jordan Green Lantern Corps. In the case of Sinestro, he would actually briefly disappear after this. He would actually later show up in Forever Evil, and after that crossover wrapped up, he has an ongoing series. And then he popped up at the start of Hal Jordan Lantern Corps. Then he would also, after that, would pop up for a couple issues of Superman, then Justice League, and that's been it. Oh yeah, after Justice League, after he wrapped up the time of Justice League, he later briefly returned to the book for under the Green Lantern Season 2, and that's been it for him. Black Hand, after this crossover, he would actually be seen briefly in Lights Out. And after Lights Out, he would actually not be seen again. Actually, no. He actually was returned not in Lights Out, but Godhead. Yes, it took him that long to return. And after that, he popped up for a story that came after that. And that's been it for Black Hand. Yeah. John Stewart himself, basically, at the end of the story, what's their relation with Fatality? That would be abruptly cut off in Godhead. Yeah, the relationship lasted for about a year and a half, and then was ended. Kyle Rayner, on the other hand, will basically become a White Lantern right after this crossover wrapped up. And he remained a White Lantern for the next several years. Yep. What about Guy Gardner? He gets reinstated to the Green Lantern Corps and just does whatever the heck he wants. He still regularly appears in Green. He basically, after this crossover wrapped up, he basically popped up in the pages of Red Lanterns, where he was there for pretty much the second half of that series, and then did the 2 Green Lantern Corps miniseries, Lost Ark, Red Oblivion, and of course Hal Jordan Green Lantern Corps. And after that wrapped up, I think he popped up for the Green Lantern, but that's been pretty much it for. Actually, no, he did pop up for the current line for Green Lantern. Yep. But what about Atrocitus? Well, he would continue his own thing in the pages of Red Lanterns. And after Red Lanterns ended, he later would pop up in the pages of Sinestro for a few issues. And then he returned in the opening story arc of Green Lanterns, where they set up something that to this day has never been followed up with. Where he planted the scene on Earth to basically do a whole thing with his core. But that's been like 5 years. I can't think of anything else he's done. The story itself also has some consequences for Sinestro, in it that the First Lantern destroyed his home world. Yep, destroyed his home world. And you might be asking, Nick, this is going to done later? Not really, no. Basically, what is later revealed is that some of his people actually survived the destruction of his home planet. Yeah, shockingly, that's the only major consequence of this crossover. One of the very few things, like, you had, like, the destruction of Sinestро's home world, him becoming a Yellow Lantern, again becoming the host of Parallax, which you actually would maintain for quite a while. Hal Jordan would take his place back as leader of the Green Lantern Corps, and took up his own book. Simon Baz has moved over to the pages of Justice League America to do something. And he did practically nothing in that book. He popped up for issue 5, and they popped up for Trinity War. Then he showed up briefly in the February tie-in, popped up in the last issue, and then after that he didn't appear again until like the Godhead issues for Red Lantern. And then he joined the Justice League a few years later. And he got his own spin-off book. I mean, currently his most recent appearance was actually pages of the current Green Lantern book. I do think Sam Bond is a good character. I kind of wish writers would write him into stories. Jessica Cruz has got a lot more positive reception than he has. Yep. But I give Wrath the First Lantern a 9 out of 10. It's a good story, but the title is nothing more than a lie. All he does is screw people's head. Yep. So yeah, that's a particular review. Stay tuned for my next two, which is basically a Batman trade and a Marvel trade. Okay? Next video. Bye.